Hello! Oh, I forgot to check all my stuff. Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Party people in the house. Hello, Princess Lugrang Cham. Hello, Andre 1172007. Welcome to the stream. How are you guys doing? I'm excited about tonight's stream. I'm excited to get this Hydra going. Oof. Stretch the old shoulder out. There's a fly in here, and that's going to be the bane of my existence this whole evening. We have a villain. I'm going to forget about it. It's going to sit down somewhere. 30 minutes is going to go by. I'm going to be cutting or painting or something, and it's going to bop me in the face. I just know it. Okay, let's get started. Let's see here. Let's flip over. I cannot hear my music. Can you guys hear the music okay? I just needed to refresh the audio. I need a fly swatted. Now, did you mean a fly swatter? Because to get this fly swatted, I think I'll need a fly swatter. Because it's like all over the place. I don't know. There it is. There were two in the bathroom just sitting by the sink. Luke Crumb, the hero of Fire Emblem. Alright, so let's swap over here. Let's go. Bam! Wow, that camera is huge. Why is that so big? Let's make it like that. That's better. Let's adjust you. Testing 1, 2. You have a fly swatter. Amazing. Oh, I see it. Hold on. I see it. You guys are going to get this live. I'm going to turn the camera. It's up there. Oh no, you can't see it. It's on the light. I missed it. I see you. Where'd you go? Oh, I found a sneaky spot. Alright, well, I'll keep my eyes peeled. Now that I've thoroughly embarrassed myself on the live internet. Oh! All night. You see it? It was right there. Is this the fly swatting stream now? Is that what this is? Where you at, fly? I'm gonna put that right there. Actually, I'm gonna put it... easy access. Okay. Back to the project. As soon as I say back to the project at hand, it comes out. What in the world? Ooh. It's a confined space. Alright. Let's see here. Just land already. I'm going to adjust this mic a second. Watch your ears. It really is. It's like, oh, I see it. Almost got it. Almost got it midair. Get out of here. I've been watching me. It's just like a cat where it's just like looking around, it doesn't see it, and then it jumps as soon as it sees it. Alright. Yeah, it does. It's flies. Maybe. Maybe. I'll put that in the description. The one episode where I can't claim that all animals were unharmed in the making of this production. Alright, here's our Hydra. Hi! So what we gotta do tonight is we gotta fill in these little cracks and crevices and gaps. So I got some good old sodium bicarbonate here, aka baking soda. Hey, Jalapeno. Welcome to the stream. We're currently working on the Hydra and fighting a stupid fly. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him before the night's out. Like, I see you. Just find a place to sit down. Mr. Miyagi in with some. Somebody give me some chopsticks. All right. So we're going to try out something new tonight. So we've got this Hydra, and he's got these little cracks in his neck. His necks. Neck's cracks, and one around his tail. We need to fill these little gaps. So we're going to use a combination of cyanoacrylate, which is just your average everyday super glue, baking soda. That's going to provide a little chemical reaction to cure the glue for us, and create a structural material to build up. And then we're going to use some needle files and some sanding sticks to sand it back down smooth. There we go. And I think I'm also going to test this little guy right here. This is a tip for my super glue. You can pop that on there. Uh-oh, where'd my X-Acto knife go? Oh, there it is. And it's like a precision applicator for the super glue. This is a new brand of super glue. Never used it before. I like it so far. It's a little thicker and goopier than the stuff that I've used previously. But I really like the bottle. It comes with 2 applicators. These 2 little tops here, so like if they mess up, get gunked up, you can just unscrew it and put another one on. It also came with these precision tips, but I think the thing that really sold me is this cap. This cap has a little metal spike inside the top, and metal is not going to fuse to the super glue as well because it's like super smooth. And just being able to grab that and twist it and break it loose and pop it out keeps it nice and clean and on the tip. That's pretty cool. Alright, we've got our precision applicator now. Let's pick one of these. That's a really big one there. We'll do that one first. I want to get this. This is kind of clumpy. I need to like mash it up a bit. Get it nice and smooth. Because you want it to go on nice and smooth. Alright, so we're just going to drop a little bit. Hands are kind of shaky tonight. And then you just take a little baking soda, sprinkle it on top, give it a tap, tap, tap. Looks like there's a little bit on the bottom that I missed. And if you notice, that right there, it's rock hard. It instantly cures with the super glue. And then, like an archaeologist, I'll grab a brush this brush that I use for dusting stuff. And you can just brush it off. And so right there, that's great. You can kind of, I think my monitor turned, I can't see too well. Right there. It's nice and smooth. It's not built up too incredibly much. That one got a little crazy. And then down here, it actually turned out really, really well all the way around. So that's what we're going to do. And then you want to make sure that like you dust, get the baking soda off before you do the next part, because you don't want it to cure this, like the powder that's on the surface. And that's the general process. The hard part is going to be getting in there and creating a nice smooth surface. And it's not necessarily even really hard. It's just tricky. It's just a matter of doing it. This little precision applicator is awesome though. It just gets it right down in there. Oh, that one was a little clumpy. Whew. I can smell the super glue. Yeah, see, I had a clump and it dried right there. So I'll have to like chip and cut that off. So a couple things happened today. I picked up the Skyward Sword HD remake for the Switch, and it's a really good game. I got to the Faron Woods dungeon, got about halfway through it, decided to put it down. kind of take my time going through it. That game's so good, though. I really like Skyward Sword. And the quality of life improvements they've added to it have been really, really great. And then another thing happened today. Wizards of the Coast announced a new book. What was it called? It was called Fizzbun, Fizzbobble, Fizz something. Fizzban? Fizzban's Treasury of Dragons. Which is pretty cool. I'm not familiar with Fizzban. Like, they, whenever they release these books that have, like, crazy names in them, like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, or Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and then there's also, like, Volo's Guide to Monsters, those characters are, like, those, yeah, they're actually significant D&D characters. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time, significant characters in D&D lore are actually people's characters from games that have been played in the past. Like, I believe the second monster manual for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons is Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. And Mordenkainen, he's a wizard of the Circle of 6, Circle of 5, Circle of something, Circle of a number. But he was actually Gary Gygax's wizard character that he played in a game in Greyhawk. And Gary Gygax is the guy that made Dungeons and Dragons, like invented it. And so it's kind of neat to see like actual people's characters show up that they just came up with as characters and played in their games will show up in the lore. It happened most recently with what's his name? Archon the Cruel. There's an actor, his name is Joe Manganiello. He was in some of the older Spider-Man movies. And I think he's like a wrestler, or anyway, he's a pretty popular dude, but he's played Dungeons and Dragons forever. And he had a character that he played called Archon the Cruel that he came up with his own stuff. And he was like, he's a paladin. I think he's an Oathbreaker paladin. He's like an evil dude. He's an evil character. And he showed up in the Critical Role campaign, where the good guys in the Critical Role campaign teamed up with him, because they would often have like guest characters, like guests come and join the show, and they would play their characters and kind of be a part of the show and stuff. So Joe brought Archon, and so he's like this evil dude, but he's like, the bad guy that you guys are fighting is worse, so I'm gonna help you, because my evil patron or matron doesn't want that bad guy to be around, so she's tasked me to come help you destroy it. So he had like this really clutch moment in the game where they ended up, spoilers if you ever want to go and watch season 1 of Critical Role, but they end up beating the bad guy at the end, and Archon is there, and he's instrumental in helping them. And the hand of the evil guy is actually this like legendary artifact. And unbeknownst to the players, I believe Matt, the dungeon master, he knew, but unbeknownst to the players, Archon betrays them. Like he raises his axe to destroy the hand of Vecna, and instead he cuts his own hand off, sticks the hand of Vecna on his arm, uses his paladin healing, like his pool of healing, to heal the arm onto him, and teleports out with it. And he's like, I'm sorry, it was just business. And everyone is just like, what? And so the reason I'm telling this story is because in one of the recent D&D campaign books, the adventures that came out, The Descent into Avernus, Archon is in Avernus and he has the Hand of Vecna, and there's like this stuff that's going on with him, and so it's like it's just like a modern example of people's actual characters being brought into the legit D&D lore, and it's kind of neat. So yeah, Fizban. I have no idea who Fizban is. I haven't looked it up or anything. I don't know if he's like somebody's character, or if he's a popular character from, you know, a bygone era or whatever. But I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it mostly because I really like Dragonborn. And, you know, in our game, Andre, if you remember, we had, you know, all the Dragonborn in the Plane of Air, and I'm interested to see what additional dragons they have, because they're going to have extra Dragonborn customization options and stuff. I think they're adding crystal dragons, but that's like very like preliminary guesswork right now. The little blurb on D&D Beyond's website says something to the effect of it's going to delve into a lot of the lore of dragons. Like, dragons are magical creatures. They're magical creatures, and it's going to answer questions like a dragon's hoard, things that dragons hoard, and how their magic affects their hoards, or like the magic items in their hoards, how it, you know, it affects the world around them, things like that. So it's not, I don't think it's just going to be stat blocks and stuff. I think it's going to be a decent bit of lore around it too, which is kind of neat. It's supposed to be coming out October, so maybe Luke can buy it for me for his birthday. Well, this is actually going a lot better than I anticipated. This is cleaning up pretty nicely. I'm probably going to notice some stuff that I missed, though, once I start to prime it. Oh, I need to check something real quick. I had a tweet announcing the stream that was scheduled to fire off at 8:50. And I'm not sure if that actually went off or not. Let me double check that. Yeah, looks like it went out. Nice. That's cool. I like being able to schedule social media posts, so when I'm in the weeds here trying to get my stream software set up and working and stuff, I don't have to like keep fiddling with remembering to put a tweet out. I think we're going to need a little bit more right here. There we go. I think that's it for the bottom. Let's see about getting this side and then moving to the top. And this isn't, you know, this isn't a piano, so I'm not going to spend an inordinate amount of time on this. I like to make these minis table ready. They don't have to be super duper crazy fantastic for me. Just as long as it's scary when I drop it on the table. And my players go, "Oh, junk. What is that?" And I say, "You don't know. Roll a history check." Or I say something clever like, "Your doom." And then we let all the players have their Hail Hydra jokes. Now you might notice it looks a little dark right there. And you would be correct, it does look a little dark, but that's actually solid. Sometimes the when cutting it like this with a sharp X-Acto knife, the super glue is going to be transparent, and so it's actually filled in there. It's just got a nice clean surface, and so it looks, you know, it looks dark. But that's actually just, it's solid. It's just transparent. The reason these other parts are white is because there's a rough surface texture from the powder of the baking soda. I think there was a crumb that got in here because that is a big old chunk. Chunk. You know, there are a lot of D&D books out there. There's a lot. Like official 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons books made by Wizards of the Coast. But if you want to play D&D, you really don't need a lot of them. If you like to support Wizards of the Coast, by all means, buy any and all of the books. But the big three, the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, and the Dungeon Master's Guide, are really all you need. There's so much content in there, especially if you're like just getting into D&D, or if like, you know, you've never Dungeon Mastered before and you'd like to you know, to get started or try it out or whatever. There is so much. Like, I've been playing D&D for a while now, and with all of the campaigns that I've been in, I have not played with every monster in the Monster Manual. There's hundreds of monsters in the Monster Manual. I bought Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes mostly for the monster races, so like you could play as a goblin or play as a bugbear. But as far as monsters are concerned, I really don't know a lot of the monsters that are in there, because I mostly just stick to the Monster Manual. And that's not out of like stubbornness or anything. It's because I haven't experienced all that content yet. You know, a lot of people who got into 5th edition before me got to, you know, play games with all of that stuff. Hey, Dad, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Glad to see you. But yeah, like they've been playing with these monsters in the Monster Manual for a long time, and been able to get through that content, and are, you know, looking forward to the new books and stuff. I still haven't gone through it, so it's like there's a ton of stuff in there that I've never even used before. So yeah, if you're just getting into it, don't ever feel like you need all of the books. You can do a lot with just the core 3. If you're not familiar with which books to get or which to start with, the the naming conventions are a little weird. The player's handbook is like the rules of the game, and like essentially how to play D&D. So if you're going to be a dungeon master, like, you still want a player's handbook because it has all the rules. And really, I'd say it's even like the first book you should ever get if you're gonna play D&D. It's going to have all of the player classes. It's going to have all the standard races. It has all the magic items. No, I take that back. It has all the spells. But the Dungeon Master's Guide is more for... It's less about rules and more about how to be a dungeon master. Like how to make a dungeon, how to make a villain, how to plan a story, how to... It's got all the magic items, you know, that way the players aren't spoiled and they kind of have surprises. And it's more like a guidebook for dungeon masters. Although if you're going to just make custom content all yourself, you might not even need the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's got a lot of really good stuff in there, though. I have a few tiny little places that I need to put some more, and I hope that this little precision thing hasn't filled up yet. There's one. And then I cut a little away from there. Oof, I goobered all over the place. Alright, let's try that again. There we go, that's nice. That's better. Trying to think if we've ever used dragons in any of the games that I've played in. I don't know if I ever have. I feel like that's something I need to fix. I feel like it's a little weird to have played Dungeons and Dragons and never used a dragon. feel like that's an incredible wasted or missed opportunity. What's the favorite monster that I've read about in the monster manual so far? Oh my. Oh, let's see. There's some really cool ones. Let me look at a list real quick to jog my memory. Oh, you know what? While that's loading, forgot about the tail. I need to do the tail on this thing. Favorite monster? Goblins are really cool. Like, I know they're really basic. I really like goblins, though. They're fun to roleplay as a dungeon master. And like, you know, if you've ever played, you know it can be tricky to, like, slip into character. I've used goblins enough that I feel like I'm finally getting good at slipping into character with them. I know that's kind of a boring answer, though. Mimics are really fun too. If you're not familiar with mimics, they're shapeshifter monsters that can turn into any inanimate object. So traditionally, they like to eat adventurers, and so traditionally they'll turn into like a treasure chest and just hang around, and when somebody tries to touch them, they get really sticky. And so they'll like grab the chest to open it, and they'll get stuck to it, and then the mimic will like turn into this big nasty toothy mouthy thing. I actually have a mimic that I've already printed and painted. Grab him real quick. It looks like this. I have a chest that looks just like this, but closed. So I can like drop a chest down on there, and it's got this nasty pseudopod that it can whack out and smack things, and it'll bite them and stuff. Mimics are fun. But the thing is that like I've never had one come up in a game before. So with as classic as a mimic is, like I still haven't played with one. I'd like to work one into a game. I'm going to put another layer of super glue on this because it's starting to... I need to build it up a little bit more. That's actually fine on that side. Okay, my thing came up. I've used a lot of elementals. Let's see here. I've never used, I have used gelatinous cubes. Gelatinous cubes are really fun. But there are a lot of other kinds of oozes. Oozes would be the category that gelatinous cubes are in. Gelatinous cubes are like near invisible. They're so clear and translucent, but they'll like digest anything. But there's also another ooze called a black pudding. That's really cool. And it just looks like this inky black pool. It also has pseudopods, like these big tendrils that'll whip out and stuff. But the thing about a black pudding is that it eats metal. And so adventurers that are not careful can lose like their armor and weapons when battling with a black pudding. I believe if it hits you, I don't remember the exact mechanic, but if it makes contact with you, you take like a -1 to your armor, to your AC, and to your to your weapons that you hit it with. And then after you get like up to like a -3 or 4, I think, that weapon is destroyed. They're really nasty. Because then it's like, you know, hey, what you gonna keep fighting with if your stuff is messed up? Rust monsters are also really cool. They look like these big bugs, big beetle things with tiny little heads and like these feathery antennas off of the front of them. And they're like this auburn color. And just like the name sounds, they like eat metal. They touch metal and it oxidizes and decays, turns to rust essentially, and then they like eat it up. Yum, 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 yum. They hang out in the Underdark, and they're pretty nasty because they too will destroy your weapons. And unless you have like backup weapons, because who carries around, you know, a sword and then an extra sword, or like, you know, stuff like that, they'll eat your gear up, and you can be left defenseless, and it's a pretty dangerous situation. And this is all basic Monster Manual stuff. There's the Kraken, which is a gigantic sea creature, just like it sounds, big old squid thing. And they're very, very tough. They'll take down entire ships. There's the Slaad, S-L-A-A-D. The Slaad are these like toad-type creatures that live in Limbo, which is like the plane of elemental chaos. So it's like this weird, obtuse it's complicated to explain it. It's like it's like a plane of existence that is in between law and chaos. And so like it's just this constant maelstrom of like things turning into fire, and then water, and then air, and then that air just melts away, and then, you know, but like there are these little pockets of law and order inside where the laws of, you know, thermodynamics and how matter works and stuff actually does physically operate. But then there's places where it doesn't. And the Slaad are also an interest. They're really, really nasty, and they're really tough, and they're really evil. If they hit you, they can implant a tadpole in you, and if it's not treated in a certain amount of time, your character just dies and turns into a Slaad. They're also pretty powerful, or they can. Some of the Slaad, there's different colors. There's like blue, red, and maybe black, I think green. I've never used them, so I haven't really like dug into them too incredibly much. But some of them are like really hardy spellcasters. Some of them are like really tough beasts and whatnot. They can polymorph and, you know, turn into other creatures. They're crazy, crazy stuff. But that's just in the base Monster Manual. And if you've never heard of them and that sounds weird, it's like, yeah, that's right, but you don't have to buy a special book to get that. Yeah, they like, it's, you know, let me read the Slaad thing. Slaad. Let's see, blue Slaad, gray Slaads, green Slaads, red Slaad, Slaad tadpoles, and death Slaads. In the ever-changing chaos of Limbo, bits of forest and meadows, ruined castles, and isolated islands float and drift through a tumult of fire, water, earth, and wind. They were created by the spawning stones, their shape changers, birth and transformation. Slaadi have horrific cycles of reproduction. Slaadi reproduce either by implanting humanoid hosts with their eggs or by injecting them with a transformative disease called chaos phage. Each color of Slaad reproduces or transforms in a different way, with red Slaad spawning blue and green Slaad, and blue Slaad spawning red and green. Each green slot undergoes a lifelong cycle of transformation into the more powerful gray and death slot. With each transformation, the slot retains its memories. Like, they're really weird. Yeah. They're really weird and they're really odd. But that's just like basic monster manual. There's also the Illithid, the Mind Flayers. They also like to implant tadpoles in people. But the Illithid are like, they're overly developed mentally. They're psychic, they're psionic. And they have these little squid mouth things. They look like humanoid Squidwards, but with tentacles around their mouths. And they like to wrap those around the top of creatures and eat their brains. And little brain snatchers. But it's because they're so intellectual, they feed off of like memories and thoughts and stuff. And so they can't just eat, they don't just eat brain matter, they like eat thoughts. The creatures that they eat have to be like sufficiently intelligent, or else they'll starve. And so they also live in the Underdark. The Underdark is not a very good place in D&D. Like that's where all the evil bad things live. And so yeah, they'll have raiding parties where they'll go up to the surface and kidnap a whole bunch of sentient commoners. They might raid a village or something like that, take them down underneath, turn them into slaves to build whatever they're currently working on, and then eat their brains. They're very, very powerful too. And they're kind of weird because they at least according to like D&D lore or whatever, they used to live, they were like space people. They traveled in these living organic ships through space and would conquer worlds, and they used to be like the ruling race of the universe until something happened that just like decimated them, and now they're all in hiding. Oh yeah, so the Hydra. Let me look it up here. I talked about it in previous streams, but you weren't here, Andre, so we can go through it again. The Hydra's tough. It's I believe it's considered a mid-tier boss creature. So if you're not aware, D&D has a loose tier system. Where levels 1 through 5, your character levels 1 through 5 are considered tier 1. And that's like, you're in a tier 1 game, you are the hero that people talk about in taverns. Like you might be known in a town and a neighboring town. And whenever you go to a place to get food, people will buy you drinks. Because they're like, hey, you're the guy that saved the blacksmith's daughter. Tier 2, once you hit Tier 2, that's like levels 5 to... You know what? Let me see here. Tiers of play. I think it's in the Beyond First Level section of the Dungeon Master. The Player's Handbook. That's the table. Tiers of play. So the first tier is levels 1 through 4, actually. Second tier is 5 through 10. And the third tier is 10 through 16, 11 through 16. And the fourth is 17 to 20. So it's almost in 5s, but it's a little off. But this is a challenge rating 8. So this would be like a tier 2 creature. And suitable for like a boss encounter of a tier 2 party. So you're looking at anywhere between levels 5 to 10-ish. I think that the game that you were in, Andre, I think you guys made it to level 6. So you would have just hit the bottom of tier 2 when you guys fought, what was his name? Wulfric, the Blackened King of Iron and Bone. So that whole adventure would have been a tier 1 adventure, and you would have become the heroes of Vayne, the city of Vayne. And yeah, so tier 2, you like start to become more renowned in like a region, like the kingdom. Like the king starts to know who you are, and you might be significant in that. So yeah, so a Hydra, they're really tough for a level 1 party, or like a tier 1 party. They're challenge rating 8. They have a decent bit of hit points. They got like 170 something hit points. Their armor class is kind of modest, AC 15. But the big thing about Hydras is they have a lot of attacks. A lot of attacks. I thought I could just like dust this stuff out with my airbrush, but that stuff is sticking really, really hard to the surface. There we go. Yeah, so their standard attack, it's a +8 to hit, so that means if your armor class is 12, or like say your armor class is 16, that means it'd have to roll an 8 or higher to hit you. It's okay to be lost. If you're lost, you'll always find your way. So the armor class, the AC is its armor class, and in D&D you have to roll a dice. So like, here's my D20. You roll that. That's a 9. 9 plus 8 is 17. So it's a 17 to hit. Plus 8 to hit, it's pretty high. And so it gets to do... So the Hydra gets to make as many bite attacks as it has heads. So on its turn, it starts with 6 attacks per turn. So that means if you're a party of 3 going up against a Hydra, you get 1 attack. If you're a fighter, you're probably going to get 2 attacks on your turn, because you get multi-attack by then. But it's going to get 6 attacks. So that means if one person is locked in combat and your wizard's staying back and your ranger is staying back and the fighter's up there, it's going to get hit 6 times for 1d10 plus 5 piercing damage. Yeah, it's crazy. But it gets better, because when a Hydra, it has a thing called reactive heads. For each head that the Hydra has beyond 1, it gets an extra reaction that can be used only for opportunity attacks. So if that fighter... Let's grab a fighter. Where are you at, fighter? Where's my dwarf? There he is. Here's Rurik. So if Rurik, the dwarf here, if he's up super close, and he tries to back away, the Hydra gets like an opportunity attack. It's going to get 6 of those. So that means if you're locked in combat with it, you do not move away unless you have like a special way to break away without provoking an attack of opportunity. Or else it's just going to nail you with all 6 heads. Another thing, it's got a thing called Wakeful, which means as long as one of its heads is always awake, so it can't, even when it's sleeping, you can't surprise it. While the Hydra has 5 heads, while it has more than 1 head, the Hydra has advantage on saving throws against being blinded, charmed, deafed, frightened, because essentially your charms and blinds and stuff will like affect different heads, but not others. Whenever the Hydra takes 25 or more damage in a single turn, one of its heads dies. If all of its heads die, the Hydra dies. So that's like, it's weird because that's a win condition that's not based on its hit points. So a Hydra has 172 hit points. So that's what? 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, 150. So it has like 20 something more hit points than it does have heads, right? So if you can cut off all of its heads really quickly in a special way, you can kill it without having to get up to its maximum hit points. But at the end of its turn, it will grow 2 heads for each of its heads that died since its last turn. So that means if Rurik here, the dwarf, does 30 damage, that's more than 25, he's going to cut off one of these heads. Everybody else gets their turn. The Hydra gets its turn. Once that round is over, if it's still alive, it grows 2 more heads. It now has 7 heads, which means it gets 7 attacks and 7 reactions for opportunity attacks. And that's round 1. And then if Rurik cuts off another head, does 30 damage or whatever, it's going to grow, like now it's got 8 heads. Now it gets 8 attacks. It's bonkers. And so you can imagine, if it just keeps, like, you can't just throw swords at it. You can't just run at it and keep attacking it, you know, and grind it down. Because it just gets stronger and stronger the more you chop heads off. We're going to get to paint this guy. I'm so excited. I thought I was going to spend, like, all this time cleaning him up. Let me grab my special little super awesome ghetto paint spray booth. Brain cramp. What do I need? Primer. So yes, it is possible to kill it. And it's a bit of a spoiler, obviously. It's one of those things that your character would probably want to research. Like if they hear, oh, there might be a Hydra there, they might want to go to a library or ask a wizard, how do you kill a Hydra? Because yes, there is a trick. And I'm going to tell you, and if you ever play in a game where you have a Hydra, you need to be a good player and make sure that you don't use your knowledge for your player's benefit. You got to make sure that your player knows this stuff and that you're role playing this right. But if it takes fire damage in that round after, like if a head has been destroyed, killed, and it takes fire damage of any kind, that halts the regeneration. So you can eventually kill it by cutting off all of its heads. Or, just halting it like that. But it could be like a back and forth. So I mean, even if you have like a wizard on the party that casts like Firebolt, doesn't even have to be a high powered spell. Just has to do some sort of fire damage. You could even probably do something with like a torch or like some alchemist's fire. Throw an alchemist firebomb on it and so that it like catches fire and starts burning and stuff. I am going to... What am I going to do? I don't have a base for this thing. I mean, I have a base, but I don't have it glued on because I wanted to paint its belly without getting it everywhere, without like having to get underneath the base. I'm going to grab some gloves to put on my hands, so when I'm spray painting this, it doesn't get my hand completely black. So I will be right back. Lucrum, if you would please entertain the lords and ladies. I'll be right back. I'm back. Amazing. Thank you, Lucrom. You never fail to entertain. Alright, I got my glove. Toasty. What is Toasty from? Where did you get that emote? So I got this little airbrush. I picked this, actually got this from my in-laws for Christmas. I'm going to drop some Vallejo black surface primer. Really good stuff. And let's get to painting. Let's see, I'm used to having these things on a little stand. I'm not used to holding them with my hands. Why aren't you spraying? There you go. You are not spraying right. I think I got a clog. Hang on a second. Right back. No fly. That's been a blessing, I guess. Oh yeah, who's the friend? Maybe I can give him a follow. There we go. Hey now, it's not a competition. There we go. Ish. Ooh, this is going to take a while. This guy's big. Oh no. It was just going blah 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 blah. I think I'm losing battery. Maybe it'll charge it faster than it'll use it. I need a better spray booth. Something that's better than this little foam box. I had plans to build one a while ago in my wood shop, but just never happened. Dang it. Stop that. I'm being kind of quiet when I'm focusing on airbrushing. I apologize. It's got some crazy angles to get into. One of the nice things about airbrushing, though, that I've discovered is that it atomizes the paint before it sprays it on. And it gives it a nice fine, coat, but it also dries really fast. So it's like you can almost handle it right after you painted it, which is good for me. Oof. Maybe I can put you down there. So hydras. Another thing about hydras is that they are they can like hold their breath underwater for a really long time, and they have a swim speed. So they often hang out in like swamps and stuff. They're not just like in big coliseums or dungeons or whatnot. It also means that they're sneaky snakes. If you're wandering through a swamp, they're huge, so like they're unaffected by the difficult terrain of swampy ground, and so it limits your movement but not theirs. And then like all of these heads will just pop up out of the ground. You know, it might be a bit of a jerk move. Well, I guess it would really depend on the level of your characters. Hold on. I muted the mic just in case, in the nick of time. You don't realize it, but I saved your life from that sneeze. Anyway, I was thinking of like use cases for a Hydra. If it can have its heads cut off, or like heads killed, and 2 more will grow back. There's nothing saying that you can't make it that your players could run into a Hydra that's already fought something. That's like killed some of its heads, and it would just start with more than 6 heads. Thank you. I feel blessed already. Yeah, there's nothing saying that you can't have it start with more heads. You know, you could have a situation where your party members are, like, your players are a higher level, and you're like, you know, it would really make sense to have a Hydra in the adventure here. You could just give it more heads. The action economy in D&D is actually a very, very big factor in the strength of a creature. If you're not familiar with the action economy, It essentially is. It's a principle that whoever has the most attacks on their side tends to win. And if you, if you have, like if you're a party of 3, and you pick up a helper, or like you hire some soldiers to come with you, and then you become a party of like 8, you can, you could be a part, like a tier 1 party and end up taking on like tier 2 creatures. It's also one of the reasons why, if one of your party members goes unconscious, your party instantly becomes weaker. And you can create what's called a death spiral, where, you're fighting against a creature that you could probably take, you end up rolling bad on the dice, and one of your party members goes unconscious. Well, now you have less attacks, and then your whole party isn't as strong, and so you're not able to hold your own, and another party member goes unconscious because they're taking all of the extra attacks. And now you've only got one party member, and then it's like you get weaker and weaker and weaker. It's the same way that when you're fighting creatures, so like say if you're fighting a horde of goblins or something like that, the more of them that you pick off, the more goblins you kill, the stronger your party is, because you can focus all of your attacks on the goblins that remain. It's that same principle. So it's like if you have a Hydra, and then the more heads it has, the stronger it becomes, the more attacks it can hit against your party. You could increase its difficulty. Inversely, you could probably also weaken it too. Like let's say for example, you're battling a Hydra, but like the real big bad monster of the game is a red dragon. That's fire damage. They could go up against this Hydra, and it only has 2 heads. And it's severely weakened. It's a reduced threat, because it had a run-in with a red dragon, and that red dragon, man, this thing is spraying all over the place. See all these little speckles? It's not supposed to do that. I wonder what's wrong. Like, it could have gone up against this red dragon, and the red dragon, just wailed into it. Man, it is speckling all over the place. That is not good. And it would have done fire damage, so the heads wouldn't have regenerated. So you could run into a Hydra that only has 2 or 3 heads. And that might be good for a lower level party. And they'll be like, hey, you know what? We killed a Hydra. And everyone's like, what? Wow, the king is super impressed. They killed the Hydra. But then you find out that really the big bad who's in charge of everything and is causing all the trouble and everything is a red dragon. And the reason that you were able to kill the Hydra was because that red dragon is out there causing trouble. Yeah, I think it still is a clog. And now it's not spraying at all. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Let's take this tip off. You'll have never seen the inside of an airbrush before. This little needle actually runs the entire length, and if you unscrew this, you can pull the whole thing out. Alright, let's try that. There's still a bunch of gook in there. Maybe it'll work better without gook. Do you think airbrush works better without gook? Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, looks like it's working. Guess what, guys? Airbrush worked better without gook. Who'd have thunk it? So let's see. I've already run one Hydra before in a Hall of Champions game. I think I'd really like them as like a swamp creature. I like the idea of a Hydra just kind of being out in the wild like a regular monster creature. I like wilderness settings though. I like making the wilderness in D&D feel dangerous. I miss playing D&D, like in person. My in-person game with the new player group. We've missed like 2 weeks because of like one of them had a baby, and I was just like, okay, well, I mean that's cool and everything, but you're messing up the D&D game. I'm just kidding. It's perfectly fine. And then they had like a big family reunion get-together thing. So that's what happens. Most D&D games actually end because they fizzle out or have scheduling conflicts. That's like statistically known. But I miss playing at the table. Just like having buds to hang out with. So I was asking Twitter the other day what I should print and paint next. And somebody said Rust Monsters. And I think Rust Monsters would be really cool. And somebody said a Kraken. Yeah, because they said it would be cool to say release the Kraken. And I'd like to do a Kraken. Krakens are just really big. They're a gargantuan creature. And the model that I have for a Kraken is like 5 pieces. You know, like Twitter? My battery's running out. I'm almost there. And it decides to run out now. Yeah, I see the Pepe. I actually really like Pepe as a meme and as like an emote and stuff. I think he's hilarious. I learned a little while ago that like in some circles, he's become like a racial slur. Like people use it as like a derogatory thing, or started using it as a derogatory thing. And I was like, so like one of my coworkers was like, "Hey man, you're not supposed to use that. That's like some racist thing or whatever." And I was like, "No, it's oh, it's not coming through on there. Yeah, it must not be translating that one." I was like, "No, Pepe is just like one of those awkward art things." And so I googled it and looked into it, and I guess it was like at the time it was like a recent trend that people were using it as like some sort of racial slur. But like the original artist of the Pepe Frog has, I don't know if he did it or like people that were like supporters of Pepe back in the day have started a Save the Pepe I don't know if it's a foundation or movement or whatever, but they're like trying to do everything that they can to make it not a racial slur anymore. So I'm a big fan of Pepe, not in the racial slur sort of way, and so I like to promote good usage of Pepe. Because he's just a frog, man. Pepe is just a frog. People want to inject hate and racism into stuff. I mean, people are going to do what people are going to do. But they ain't going to ruin Pepe for me. You may take our land, but you'll never take my Pepe. Alright, let's give that a second to charge. I'm impatient. Man, this thing was a beast of Prime. Holy cow, there's so much. Okay. I think... like part of it's coming off. Like where my gloves are sticking to it. Alright, I think this is the last touch-up. The last touch-up is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace. Alright, let's put you away. And let's get... Oh no! I missed like one little spot on this eye that I need to touch up. Okay, we'll set him over there. Let him dry. I got pretty close to the paint. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and clean this airbrush off. And we'll let the compressor charge. This is an instance where it would be nice to have just like a straight up regular compressor rather than this USB one. But, I mean, it's served its purpose for me for a long time. And really, I should have expected to to have needed to, you know, wash this out. I mean, to wash this out. To prime this guy tonight, so I should have just charged it. Alright, I'm going to rinse him out real quick and then we'll come back and use some soap. Alright, I got most of it out. Cleaning these things out is such a pain in the butt. That's the only thing I dislike about airbrushes. They're really nice if you have like a lot of minis or like a big mini to paint, because then you can, then your prep time and your cleanup time are spread out among the, you know, a larger load of work. And so it's worth it then. Honestly, what I should have done, once I saw that that thing was low on battery, I should have primed that Hydra. Yeah, I got it out there. I should have primed that Hydra with a paintbrush and then did the Zenithal highlight through the airbrush. Hello, A10. A10 at 10? You're a 10 to me. Welcome to the stream. We're working on a Hydra. We just finished priming them. And now we're going to do a Zenithal highlight. If you're unfamiliar with painting minis, Zenithal highlights are really nice. They're a really good way of getting a lot of detail easy and cheaply. Cheaply, is that a word? Inexpensively? A lot of detail for a little effort. It's probably second in my list of techniques of bang for buck, right behind washing. Let's get my little water dropper. Washing is one of the easiest things you can do to add a ton of detail. And Zenithal highlighting is really good too. I probably put it on second on my list because the idea is that normally with painting, like say I'm just going to paint this Hydra green, right? Let's say he's just going to be a solid green. Well, you want him to have like a light source, and you want him to have shadows and stuff like that. And so typically what you would do is you would take your color and you would, you know, base coat him in that color, paint the whole thing that one color, and then you would lighten it up a little bit and you would paint highlights onto it, and you would darken it down and you would paint shade. Maybe not in that order, but that's kind of like the idea, the principle behind it. Well, with a Zenithal highlight, there's my airbrush cleaner, you paint the highlight first. So what you do is you prime them in like gray or black Only the real ones understand. You prime them in like gray or black, and then you spray a white highlight across the top, just in one direction. And it simulates it like kind of makes a nice light highlight across it, and then you thin your paints down, and when you paint it, the dark parts, the parts that are still black, are a dark green. The ones that are kind of in the middle are your middle green, and then the ones that are light are the highlight. The only reason I say I have mixed success with it, or like that it's a number 2 tip, is that sometimes sometimes I can't thin my paints as well, and so I end up coating it so well that it covers up the highlight. But if you can do it right, it can save you some time. I'm still trying to figure out how to consistently do it right. Almost got that out of there. And then the last thing that we want to do is put the compressor back on here. Try not to spill this cleaner everywhere. And then we're going to blow the cleaner out the front. And that'll clean the insides. And this is really important when you're going from like a dark color to a light color, especially this black primer. The pigment is so dense that if any of it gets into that white, it's just going to make a dark gray blotch. And I think we're good. And hopefully I got a decent enough of a charge to do this highlight with it. You don't really, we're not going to need to do nearly as much with the zenithal highlight as we would with priming it. Priming it, you got to get it all over everywhere. The highlight is literally just on the top. And you'll definitely see the difference. Screenshot it or clip it if you wanna like put them side by side. I use this Bombay Indian ink because the pigment count is so much higher in this than in the white paint that I have. I think that's probably good. Knowing me, it's probably too much. Alright, let's grab the Ghetto Spray booth again. Let's check you out. You all dry? Yeah, you look dry enough. Alright, I'm just going to put him in the palm of my hand. And to simulate sunlight, I'm just going to spray down from the top. And let's go like this. Check to make sure the thing's spraying okay first. There we go. It's pretty speckly, which is not the best, but there we go. Something's wrong. Let's try that. Man, why is this being so problematic tonight? I normally don't have any of these problems. I did when I first started using this thing, but it's been like a good long while since I've had this many issues. The ink looks like it's coming through okay. Oof. There we go. Yeah, that's better. So now from the camera angle that you're looking at, it's just going to look like the whole thing is lighting up, or lightening up. But once I turn it to the side, you'll definitely see the shadows and the highlights. Oof. Oh, those drips. That's really gonna mess that up. And I do like to go kind of hard on my shadows and highlights. So if we turn him over, you can see a lot more detail. You even get this cool shadow where like the head here is kind of shadowing that guy there. I'm going to kind of hit it from a couple different angles just to soften this up a little bit, because I do like the highlights to be not so stark a contrast. So I'm going to kind of hit him from the side just to kind of soften the profile or the shadow a bit. Because there is, like, it's not like he's going to be underneath a fluorescent light bulb or something. He's supposed to be like in sunlight. And there is like ambient light reflection around in that kind of environment. There we go. Hey, look at that. I used just about all the paint that I put in there. That doesn't happen very often. Alright, let me go rinse this real quick. And it saved all that from getting on my hand, which is super nice. Okay. How are we doing on time? $10:43. We got a little time left. We might be able to start base coating this guy. Let's see. Do I have a nice wide brush? There's my nice wide brush. Alright, let's take a look at our color palette. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to get rid of that. Alright, let's pull up a reference image. Let's see, Hydra. I like Hydras. I like Hydras all day long. Ooh, this is really cool. Copy image link. Where is my reference image? Reference URL, there we go. Prepare to use. Paste. There it is. Why is she so small? Transform, or reset transformation. Why is it so small? Let's see, open image in new tab. It's still so small. Why is it so small? That's bigger. Reset the transformation. Yeah, that'll work. So it's kind of like a yellowy green. It's got a yellowy underbelly. No, so do I have special paint brushes or not really? Not really. That's a good question. There are really good brushes out there. I don't take care of brushes very well. I'm not very good at taking care of brushes. So I buy, if you notice, there's a lot of gray brushes in here. Like this one. Oh, look at this number 8 gray brush. And look at this other number 8 gray brush. And look at that. It's another number 8 gray brush. I kind of bought these pink ones because they were like fancy. Some of them were bigger, some of them were smaller. I even bought this one, which was like an expensive, like for me, expensive brush. And really they just didn't perform as well as these number 8s. So I just get these at Hobby Lobby. $6 for a pack of 12 number 8 rounds. And what I do is, I almost fell down. Is for like really fine point detail, I'll just grab a new brush and it'll have a nice fine point and I'll use it. And then when it wears down and messes up and stuff, I'll use it for other things. Like once it starts to fray out a little bit, I'll use it for basing. Once it starts to fray even more, I'll use it for dry brushing. It's just, yeah, I need to learn to take better care of my brushes, but until I do, I'm not going to spend $20 on a brush. I mean, if I spend $20 on a brush, it should last me like a very, very long time, but the way that I take care of them, it probably won't. So I don't want to waste that money. And the paints I use aren't fancy. At least a lot of them aren't. Everything in this row, this row right here, these are Apple Barrel. You buy them for $1 at Walmart paints. Nothing fancy. These ones back here are actually game paints. They're made by Vallejo. Exactly. Or don't break what's good if you're not good with it. These are special miniature paints that I use. And I don't use all of them. Some of them I don't care for. Like, I hate that blue. I hate it so much. I don't use it hardly at all. Oh, look at that. So we sealed up the neck. And that right there, there's a little bit of a seam. Tiny little bit right there. See that? A little bit of one right there. Little bit of one right there. And there's a little bit of one right there too. There's probably more, but that highlight really picked those up. The tail looks okay. But, you know, all in all, I think the seams like that looks great. Look at that. That looks like it's just a solid piece. That side looks pretty good too. The underside's a little wobbly. But all in all, I think it's pretty good. That's a little crumbly right there. I wish we could clean up that a little bit better. But all in all, I think it looks really good. So this is like a yellowy, nasty green with like speckles on top. Interesting. Which means I see some brown in there. Really almost black and red in the little marks on the top. I think we're probably going to base coat it in that bright yellow. And then probably dry brush the brown and the darker stuff on top of it. Then probably do some stippling, which is where you take it and you kind of pop like that to make like a little speckly pattern. We'll do some stippling for the spots. It's got a lot of red around where the mouth's open, like where it travels back here. That's pretty cool. I like how MZ4250, the guy that makes these models, I like how he models them after the Monster Manual. Like, it's pretty close, where it's got this one curling in, you know, just like that head right there. And then this one's curling back, and then this one's, like, looking backwards. This one's forward but kind of hooked down. And then the only difference is, like, let's see, it would have been 1, 2, Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, see, that's got 7 heads. This has 6 heads. So it's got, so like this one here is different. Instead of having one curl in and then another one curl out that way. But like all the other ones are pretty much the same as on there. I think that's cool. I think that's cool that he does that. So I'm going to say, let's mix up a little bit of this yellow. Let's do like a really bright yellow here. We'll use the sun yellow to give it a bit of more of a texture. And just a fuzz of a dark brown. I'm gonna say the burnt umber. No, this stuff's too watery. Let's do beastie brown. So let's get, you know what? I'm gonna go straight yellow. I'm not gonna tint it at all. Just the straight sun yellow. And we'll water it down a little bit and see how that looks. And what I think we'll do is we'll put it on his underbelly, and if that looks okay, we'll do it around on the rest. And I think I'm not even going to thin it down, because this stuff is pretty translucent as it is. See how much of that black you can see coming through it? That's actually going to be a good thing. Right now I'm just trying to keep it from ponding up. I'm trying to keep it, like, let it have a nice smooth coating and not get like thick areas and thin areas. You know what? I'm going to have to rinse my brush off, and I'm going to need to get a little bit of this black primer. Probably just dip it out of the top here. Yeah, there we go. There's a big white splotch that hit from the airbrush. Smooth that out a little. Yeah, I think that this yellow is really gonna... Oh man, look at that. That is really working with that zenithal highlight. Look at that versus that. Like, it's just... I mean, it looks solid yellow, but underneath you can tell that it's still shaded under there. I think this is going to be great. And it's going to work. It's going to look weird, you know, initially. It's going to look like a sunflower or something dorky just because it's solid yellow. But that's the way it goes. Like, once the paint gets built up, layer upon layer, the effect is going to come together. Yeah, I've got 2 minutes, so I'm probably not going to make much progress on this. I'm going to use up the rest of this paint, and then I'm going to call it a night too. Have a good night, Lucrum. Thank you so much for moderating. As always, you do a fantastic job, and I appreciate you. Have a good night, Andre. You're certainly welcome. Thank you so. Oop, got that all over in his mouth. Thank you for coming and hanging out. Appreciate you having you on. Hopefully, we'll see you next time. We're almost there. We're in the home stretch. Just got a little bit of paint to finish up. You know, I hate to say it, and I always do this to myself, but I really should just like base the whole thing. It's not going to take much more to do it. I don't want this paint to be uneven. Oof. Thinned that way too down, man. That just dripped everywhere. That was not a good situation. It's gonna mess up my shadows. The base coat always looks the worst. If I've said it on the channel before, I've said it 100 times. Minis don't look good until like the very end. It's like the last 10% of the painting job is when it really starts to come together and you're like, yeah, now it looks like a good thing. Before then you're like, what in the world am I doing wrong? We're getting some good highlights and shadow. Wow. Highlights. We're getting some good highlights and shadows though. That zenithal highlight really is pulling its weight on this mini. That is absolutely for sure. It's kind of running into some of the cracks and crevices though, and it's kind of killing some of the shadows, but I think we'll be able to get those shadows back with a wash. So I think I'm not stressing it too much. I think we'll be all right. Yeah, I know, 2 minutes. How about you were going to bed? I decided I didn't want uneven paint patterns on this base coat. That's when you like paint across the surface and then let it dry, and then you go back and paint the other half. And getting it to match up perfectly is a pain. There will always be like an overlap, and the paint won't blend together, and it leaves just like this line. And I didn't want that, so I'm just going to finish up these last couple heads, and I'm going to call them night. Nice. Alright, we gotta be careful I don't pull this paint off of it. As long as the paint is still damp, you kind of blend it together, and it just looks like one coat. For large models like this, that's really difficult because you gotta stay on top of it. Smaller ones, you don't have as much surface area that you have to blend consistently to get a single base coat. You gotta fight the Grey Horde. You gotta fight that gray pile of minis. You gotta get paint on them. Sometimes you gotta go to bed, and sometimes you gotta stay up and paint minis. This yellow is really working well with this zenithal highlight, though, I gotta say. I kind of wonder how much time I could have saved if I would have primed it and then threw this yellow, like zenithal highlight it, and then threw this yellow into my paintbrush. I mean, my paintbrush. Come on, airbrush. Thank you. Goodness. Come on, brain. And just spray the whole thing down with a thin coat from my airbrush. That probably would have worked really, really well. But I didn't think about it. I've been looking for more excuses to use my airbrush for stuff, like in a normal way, not just for priming and highlighting. gonna have enough paint to finish this guy. I really don't want to pour out some more. Drat. That's it. That's it. I'm putting them down. Look at that. Look at all the highlights and details and everything on there. Oh man, that's rad. That's gonna look so good. I know, right? That's really rad. Oh, that's my dice making lots of noise. That's my dice making even more noise. Goodness, dice, get out of the way. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. I'm super happy with them. I think the yellow is going to... oh man, just look at the shadows on that. Oh, it looks so good. Nice and dark on the underbelly and nice and bright on the top. And that's just a single coat of yellow. Single coat of yellow with a zenithal highlight underneath. Does so much of the work for you. It's fantastic. Well, next Saturday... Ooh, actually... So Tuesday's the For Funsies stream. I may go ahead and start painting him on the For Funsies stream, because it's kind of fun at this point of the game. But we'll see. I don't know if I need anything else for one of my other games. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful time, and we'll see you next Tuesday.